Hi, I'm Julia Hankins, and I help kids yoga teachers feel organized and confident so they can teach children's yoga in a way that feels good for them and so they can change the world by teaching yoga. And today I thought I would share with you what documents I have when I'm teaching in schools. And actually, what documents I use in yoga teaching in general, because when I first set up my kids yoga business, quite a while ago now, 7 years ago, I was really excited to get started, and I knew that I wanted to deliver yoga to kids. And actually, I already had been within my own class teaching, so I wasn't like put off by delivering like children's yoga lessons at all. But I had a real barrier about the documents and about the legalities, and I got really worried about being in trouble, doing something wrong, not having some legal documents that I needed. And I felt really intimidated by the whole paperwork of the situation. And I don't know if that's because I'm neurodivergent. And so sometimes paperwork and documents can make me feel a little bit uh, frazzled. So I don't know if it's that. In fact, I'd really love to know, is this something that you find a little bit overwhelming too? Is all the documentation? But it was definitely a barrier for me. And it took me quite a while actually to feel confident with all of the documents that I got in place before I could approach schools, which is a bit crazy, really, because before being a kids yoga teacher, I was actually a senior leader in a school. So you would think that I would be really confident about stuff like that, but I wasn't. And so I thought I'd share with you things that I've learned in the past 7 years about documents and things like that for teaching yoga with kids, particularly in schools, but also just generally because, we want to get it right. We want to make sure that we've got all the documents that we need in place. So yeah, I wanted to share with you what I've learned. And the first thing that I've learned is that every school and setting is different. And so there isn't a magical list that everybody has, or you have to have these things to deliver in a school. There's no magic list. Different schools have asked me for different things, and it wouldn't surprise me if I turned up at a school next week and got asked for something that I'd never been asked before. It really wouldn't surprise me, because the amount of different documents from different places I've been asked for, it seems crazy to me that there just isn't one expected thing. Having said that, I do have my top five documents that you definitely should have when you're teaching kids yoga. And so these are your kids yoga teaching certificate to prove that you know your stuff and you can get insured. And that's the second thing, your insurance certificate. You definitely need that before you teach children. To work in schools, you're going to need an enhanced DBS. This is for UK. It may be different in other countries, but for us in the UK, we need an enhanced DBS. And it's really good and useful to sign up for the update service, which automatically updates every single year. And what happens is you get given a number, your DBS number, and then the school has that number and they can check to see that you haven't done anything terrible. What's interesting there, though, is that actually the schools only really need the number that's on the form, but quite often when I go to schools, they quite often want to photocopy it or want to have a copy of it for their file, which they're not supposed to keep it on file. Actually, they're supposed to just record the number. So, but it's useful to have. Also, you're going to need a risk assessment. It's a good idea to have a risk assessment for every single different setting that you deliver yoga in, or every single type of activity that you have. So, for example, I have a risk assessment for teaching yoga in the classroom, and I also have a risk assessment for teaching yoga in a hall and also for outside and in a community space, because there's different risks involved and there's different things to consider. So making sure that you have your risk assessments in place. And if you're starting yoga at a new setting, a new school, they may wish for you to fill in their own particular risk assessment. They may have a format that they like to use, or you could ask for their format so that you're doing your risk assessment in line with the rest of their risk assessments. And then the fifth thing is a first aid certificate. It's not likely, if you're working in schools, that you'd be responsible for delivering first aid, because they have registered first aiders within the school who would be responsible for that. But it's for me personally, I feel more confident knowing that I know the basics, just in case. So those are my top 5 that I believe are necessary, those documents in place. What else? Is that everything? Is that all you need? Not really. Over the years, I've been asked for such a range of policies, and I've discovered a few other documents as well that have helped me along my kids yoga teaching journey. And so what I've done is compile a list of 20 things that are really useful. So some of them are that you'll already have, and some of them are things that you can find somewhere on the internet and adapt to make your own, or some of them you can start from scratch. I also have an editable document bundle. So if you wanted to save yourself a lot of time, you can buy my bundle and download it and then edit it and change it so that it suits your business. And that's available to buy, and I'll include a link for it here. And so, but the checklist is free, so I'm going to put a link for the checklist in the description here as well. So I highly recommend download the checklist and see which bits you've already got, and consider whether the bits that you haven't got, whether there's something you need or whether something you'd like to have. And maybe you might find the editable bundle that I've already created useful. It took me a really long time to create, so it would save you many hours. So yeah, that's the editable bundle. Another thing that I'd like to say is that when you've got your checklist, all your documents in place, I highly recommend having a folder. Here is my fabulous folder that I take everywhere with me. It's like I guide it with my life. It's my special folder, and it keeps everything in one place, all of my risk assessments, all of my any like package information or any flyers or anything like that. And if I've got any contracts with schools, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously you have to be careful how you store it in terms of GDPR and things like that. But yeah, having it all in one place, in one folder, and then taking that folder with you to your classes may seem really obvious, but to me it's been a really useful thing. And so yeah, one last thing, obviously this is not legal advice. This is just my own personal experience as a kids yoga teacher working in the UK. So just a little disclaimer there. If you're not in the UK, then you know, check the information for your country that you're working in, but also make sure that you know, what I'm saying is accurate for your particular place. Also, one last thing to remember is if you're working in a school, then they're likely to ask for photographic ID. And so they won't always tell you that they need that. So always make sure that you've got, you know, a driving license or passport or something like that with you, so that they can check on your DBS that it matches who you are. So having your photographic ID is really useful too. I'd highly recommend as well that if you're going to work with a new setting or a new school, that you email them prior to going and ask them, is there any documentation that you need in place? Because if there's a particular policy that they'd like to have from you and you haven't created it, you're not then on the back foot when you turn up at the school. And sometimes schools aren't the best at communicating because they have, you know, they're really big organizations with lots of people involved. So yeah, if you're working with a school, email them, find out from them, is there anything that I need, any documentation that I need, so that you're all organized when you first work in the school or in that setting. So I hope that you found that really useful. If you'd like to download the checklist, check it out below. If you'd like some support, then feel free to download the editable bundle. So you can just literally download the documents. They're all Word documents, so you can kind of change them, put your logo in, edit the policies so that it represents what it is that your situation. And so hopefully you found that really helpful. If you'd like some more support, and if there's anything that you'd like to talk through, then do get in contact with me about having a one-to-one mentor meeting with me. I do one-off 1 hours, or I also do longer mentoring programs where I work with you on a longer period of time. If there's anything that you'd like to ask, if you'd like me to talk about anything specific in a blog or in a video, then do email me and let me know. Thanks very much for watching. Also, like and subscribe. I've always wanted to say that. I never say it. But if you could like and subscribe, that would be great.